Hark, gather close, ye seekers of forgotten lore, and lend thine ears to a saga spun from the very fabric of existence, a tale older than memory itself whispered on the winds that swept across the newborn world. Before the reign of the Sky Father, before the shimmering cities of Olympus graced the heavens, there walked upon the face of the earth a race of immense power and boundless will, the Titans. Their dominion stretched across the cosmos, their influence shaping the mountains, carving the seas, and dictating the very rhythm of creation. Among these formidable beings was one whose name would forever be linked not with divine might, but with a profound and enduring act of compassion, a titan of keen intellect and foresight known as Prometheus. Born of Iapetus and the wise Clymene, or some say Themis, the embodiment of divine law, Prometheus stood apart from his brethren. While the other titans reveled in their raw power and unchallenged supremacy, Prometheus possessed a contemplative spirit, a mind that yearned to understand the intricate workings of the cosmos and the destinies of the beings that stirred within it. He observed the unfolding of creation with a discerning eye, noting the delicate balance and the inherent potential within the nascent world. It was in this early age that the race of mortals first emerged from the dark embrace of the earth. Fashioned from clay and water, imbued with a fragile spark of life, they were beings of wonder and vulnerability. They stood upright, their eyes gazing at the vast expanse of the heavens, their minds slowly awakening to the mysteries that surrounded them. Yet they were ill-equipped for the harsh realities of the world. They possessed neither the brute strength of the beasts nor the innate knowledge of survival that governed the natural order. They shivered in the cold, stumbled in the darkness, and lived in constant fear of the elements and the creatures that roamed the land. Prometheus, with his compassionate heart, looked upon these fledgling beings and felt a deep stirring of pity. He saw their potential, the spark of intellect that flickered within them, and he grieved for their plight. While the other titans largely ignored these ephemeral creatures, viewing them as little more than fleeting shadows upon the landscape, Prometheus saw in them the seeds of something greater, a promise yet to be fulfilled. He believed that these mortals, if given the right guidance and the proper tools, could rise above their primitive state and perhaps even attain a measure of understanding of the world around them. As the age of Titans began to wane, and the seeds of a great conflict were sown between the elder gods and their Olympian offspring, Prometheus found himself increasingly at odds with his kin. He possessed a wisdom that transcended the simple exercise of power, and he foresaw the inevitable shift in the cosmic order. During the cataclysmic war known as the Titanomachy, Prometheus, guided by his foresight and his inherent sense of justice, chose to side with the upstart Olympians led by the mighty Zeus. His counsel and his strategic mind proved invaluable in the Olympians' ultimate victory, contributing significantly to the downfall of his own brethren. With the Titans vanquished and cast into the shadowy depths of Tartarus, the Olympians ascended to their celestial thrones, establishing their dominion over the cosmos. Zeus, the formidable Sky Father, became the supreme ruler, his power unmatched, his will absolute. The world was now under a new order, an order shaped by the victorious gods of Olympus. It was in this new era that the relationship between the gods and mortals became a matter of consequence. Zeus, in his newfound power, viewed humanity with a mixture of indifference and suspicion. He saw their fragility as a weakness and their burgeoning intellect as a potential threat to his divine authority. He decreed that mortals should remain in their humble state, subservient to the whims of the gods, their lives circumscribed by ignorance and hardship. Prometheus, however, could not abandon his concern for the mortals. He believed that they deserved more than a meager existence, that the spark of intellect within them yearned for knowledge and understanding. He saw the potential for greatness that lay dormant within their fragile forms, and he was determined to help them realize it, even if it meant defying the will of the mighty Zeus himself. The first act of Prometheus's defiance came in the division of offerings. When humans began to sacrifice animals to the gods, a dispute arose over the proper apportionment of the slain beasts. Prometheus, ever the champion of mortals, devised a clever scheme. He slaughtered a great ox and divided it into two piles. In one pile, he concealed the best portions of meat beneath a layer of glistening fat and entrails, making it appear far more appealing. In the other pile, he arranged the bare bones covered by a deceptive layer of rich-looking fat. He then invited Zeus to choose which portion the gods would receive. Zeus, deceived by the appearance of the piles, chose the one that seemed the most substantial, the the one that concealed the choice cuts beneath a deceptive layer. When he discovered the trickery, his divine wrath flared. He was angered not only by the deception, but also by Prometheus's blatant favoritism towards mortals. As punishment for this transgression, Zeus declared that mankind would henceforth be denied the vital element that would lift them from their primitive existence, fire. Fire, the sacred element of the gods, would remain their sole prerogative, a symbol of their divine power and their superiority over mortal beings. Without fire, humanity remained in darkness and cold. They could not cook their food ward off wild beasts or work metals. Their progress was stunted, their potential stifled. They lived a precarious existence forever at the mercy of the elements, their burgeoning intellect unable to fully blossom. Prometheus, witnessing their continued hardship, felt his compassionate heartache. He knew that fire was the key to unlocking humanity's true potential, the spark that would ignite their minds and allow them to shape their own destiny. And so the Titan of foresight began to contemplate a far greater act of defiance, one that would forever alter the relationship between gods and mortals, and would forever bind his name to the very essence of human progress. He would steal the sacred fire of Olympus and gift it to mankind, accepting whatever punishment the wrath of Zeus might bring. The burden of humanity's advancement was a weight he was willing, even eager to bear. The dawn of mortals, though fraught with peril, was about to be illuminated by a stolen flame, a flame kindled by the unwavering compassion of a Titan who dared to defy the king of the gods for the sake of a fragile, hopeful race. The stage was set for an act of legendary transgression, an act that would ignite not only the hearts of humankind, but also the eternal wrath of the Olympian pantheon. Prometheus, the Titan of foresight, watched the suffering of mortals with a heavy heart, his compassion a burning ember against the cold indifference of the Olympian gods. The decree of Zeus, withholding the sacred fire, plunged humanity into a perpetual twilight, a state of primitive struggle against the overwhelming forces of nature. Without the warmth of the flame, mortals huddled in caves gnawing on raw meat, their minds dulled by endless cold and fear. Their potential, that divine spark Prometheus had glimpsed within them, remained dormant, locked away by the tyrannical will of the Skyfather. But Prometheus was not one to stand idly by, not when the fate of an entire race hung in the balance. His decision was made, etched in the very depths of his being. He would defy Zeus, he would reclaim the sacred fire, and he would gift it to humanity, no matter the cost, no matter the wrath of the heavens. The task was fraught with unimaginable peril. Mount Olympus, the celestial abode of the gods, was an impregnable fortress, its lofty peaks piercing the very heavens, shrouded in clouds and guarded by vigilant divine sentinels. The sacred flame, the very essence of divine power, burned perpetually in the hearth of Zeus's own palace, tended by the virgin goddess Hestia, whose vigilance was unwavering. To steal this fire was not merely an act of rebellion, it was an affront to the very essence of Olympian authority, a transgression that would surely unleash the boundless fury of Zeus, king of gods and mortals. Yet Prometheus possessed not only boundless compassion, but also cunning intellect, a mind capable of intricate planning and audacious execution. He knew that brute force was futile against the might of Olympus. He needed guile, stealth, and an intimate understanding of the divine routines. He spent days, perhaps even weeks, observing the movements of the gods, learning their habits, their weaknesses, their moments of distraction. He noted the times of their grand feasts when their attention was consumed by nectar and ambrosia, and their vigilance, even for a moment, might waver. He devised a plan simple in its elegance, audacious in its scope. He fashioned a hollow fennel stalk, a common plant found even on the sacred slopes of Olympus, seemingly innocuous, unremarkable. This would be his vessel, his subtle cloak for the stolen light. He waited for the opportune moment, a night of particularly raucous celebration on Olympus, when the laughter of the gods echoed across the heavens, and their attention was diverted by merriment and the intoxicating fumes of divine wine. Under the cloak of the deepest night, shrouded by the very mists that clung to the Olympian peaks, Prometheus ascended. His footsteps were lighter than the whispers of the wind, his movements as fluid as the shadows themselves. He bypassed the sleeping sentinels, slipped past the watchful eyes of lesser deities, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolute purpose. He moved through the gleaming halls of Zeus's palace, the golden architecture shimmering in the perpetual celestial light, each step bringing him closer to the sacred hearth. There in the heart of the palace burned the eternal flame, a brilliant pulsing beacon of divine power, casting long dancing shadows across the opulent chamber. Hestia, the gentle goddess of the hearth, true to her nature, maintained the flame with quiet devotion, her presence a silent testament to its sanctity. Prometheus approached with reverence not to the flame itself, but to the desperate hope it represented for humanity. With a swift, almost imperceptible movement, he dipped the tip of his hollow fennel stalk into the sacred fire, capturing a mere spark, a tiny ember, yet pregnant with immeasurable potential. He felt the scorching heat, the raw power of the divine element, but he held firm, his resolve unyielding. Having secured the stolen spark, Prometheus retreated as silently and swiftly as he had arrived. He descended the perilous slopes of Olympus, the precious flame hidden within his humble vessel, its faint glow barely visible in the darkness. He felt the weight of his transgression, the enormity of his defiance, but it was overshadowed by the profound hope for mankind that now burned within the fennel stalk. He made his way to the hidden enclaves where mortals huddled shivering and fearful, their lives circumscribed by darkness. With a steady hand, Prometheus presented the gift, the stolen spark of civilization, to the awestruck humans. At first they recoiled from its intense heat, its crackling energy. They had known only the cold, unyielding darkness, and this vibrant, dancing light was alien and terrifying. But Prometheus, with infinite patience, showed them how to tend the flame, how to feed it with wood, how to harness its power. He taught them to build hearths, simple stone circles that would contain the fire, providing warmth and a center for their burgeoning communities. The immediate impact of fire upon humanity was nothing short of miraculous. It banished the bone-chilling cold that had plagued their existence, allowing them to venture out of their caves and establish more permanent shelters. It provided light in the perpetual darkness, illuminating their surroundings, allowing them to see their way through the night, to recognize dangers, and to work long after the sun had set. The fear of predators, once a constant companion, was greatly diminished as the flickering flames kept wild beasts at bay. But the gift of fire was not merely warmth and light, it was the catalyst for civilization. Prometheus taught them how to use fire to cook their food, making it more digestible and palatable, releasing nutrients and leading to greater health and strength. This simple act transformed their diet, freeing them from the constraints of raw sustenance and allowing them to explore new culinary possibilities. He showed them how to temper metal, how to forge tools and weapons from the raw ore they found in the earth. This knowledge born of fire was revolutionary. No longer were they reliant on crude stone implements. They could now craft sharper axes for felling trees, stronger spears for hunting, and more effective tools for cultivation. This leap in technology allowed them to shape their environment, to clear land, for farming, to build more sophisticated shelters, and to protect themselves with greater efficacy. With fire, humanity also began to craft pottery, baking clay into vessels for storing food and water, improving their hygiene, and allowing for the preservation of resources. The ability to create these durable containers revolutionized their domestic lives, leading to greater stability and the accumulation of goods. Beyond the practical applications, fire ignited something deeper within the human spirit. It fostered community. The hearth became the center of their gatherings, a place of warmth and security, where stories were told, knowledge was shared, and bonds were strengthened. The flickering flames became a symbol of shared experience, of collective endeavor, of the very essence of human connection. Fire also spurred the development of language and art. Gathered around the comforting glow of the fire, humans began to communicate more effectively, to share their experiences, to explain the world around them. The shadows cast by the dancing flames inspired the first cave paintings, the first attempts to capture the world on stone, to express their fears, their hopes, their understanding of the cosmos. The warmth of the fire freed their hands and minds from the constant struggle for basic survival, allowing them to ponder, to create, to innovate. Prometheus, witnessing the flourishing of humanity, felt a profound satisfaction. His compassion had borne fruit. Mortals, once trembling in the darkness, now stood tall, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, their minds stirring with new ideas, their hands busy shaping the world around them. They were no longer merely creatures of instinct. They were becoming beings of intellect, of ingenuity, of culture. He had given them more than just a tool. He had given them the means to forge their own destiny, to rise above the mere struggle for survival, to truly become makers and creators in their own right. But the gods of Olympus, particularly the mighty Zeus, were not blind to the changes sweeping across the mortal realm. The smoke of human fires, once absent, now curled toward the heavens, a defiant plume against the sky. The warmth of the mortal hearth was felt even on the divine slopes of Olympus, a subtle challenge to Zeus's authority. The sudden leap in human progress, their newfound resilience and ingenuity, could not be ignored. Zeus, in his boundless arrogance, knew only one being capable of such audacious defiance, one being capable of such profound compassion for mortals: Prometheus. The theft of the sacred fire, the ultimate transgression, had been exposed, and the boundless wrath of the Skyfather, a wrath that could shake the very foundations of the cosmos, was now about to descend upon the defiant Titan, demanding a price far greater than any mortal could ever comprehend. The spark of civilization, though a beacon of hope for humanity, had ignited an inferno of divine fury, and Prometheus, the giver of fire, was about to become its first most agonizing sacrifice. The smoke of human fires, now rising in steady plumes from the mortal realm, carried with it not the scent of sacrifice, but the subtle, defiant aroma of cooked food, of tempered metal, of homes warmed against the biting cold. This was a scent that pierced the serene air of Olympus, an unmistakable signal of humanity's newfound independence, a direct challenge to the authority of the Skyfather. Zeus, seated on his thunderous throne, felt the tremors of this audacious defiance in the very depths of his being. His divine senses, sharp as the keenest eagle's gaze, immediately identified the culprit. It could be no other than Prometheus, the cunning Titan, the perpetual champion of humankind who had once more dared to circumvent the divine will. The theft of the sacred fire, the very essence of Olympus, was an insult of cosmic proportions, a transgression that demanded a punishment as grand and terrifying as the king of the gods himself. Zeus's wrath was a force of nature, a tempest born of wounded pride and absolute power. It manifested not as a mere outburst, but as a deliberate, calculated, and utterly merciless response designed to break the spirit of the defiant Titan and to instill unshakable fear in any who might consider emulating his rebellion. He summoned the Olympians, their faces grim and solemn, for they knew the terrible fury of their king when provoked. He thundered his pronouncement, his voice echoing across the celestial halls, shaking the very foundations of the cosmos. Prometheus, for his compassion, for his defiance, for his audacious theft, would pay an eternal price. First, to exact a measure of vengeance upon humanity for accepting the stolen gift, Zeus commanded Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, to fashion a being of exquisite beauty, molded from earth and water, infused with the breath of life by the gods themselves. This was Pandora, the all-gifted one, a creature designed not for benevolence, but as a vessel of divine retribution. Each god and goddess bestowed upon her a gift: beauty from Aphrodite, persuasive speech from Hermes, cunning from Athena, and a captivating allure from the Graces. But hidden within her, concealed by the gods' cruel design, was a dark seed of perilous curiosity. She was sent to the mortal realm not as a curse upon humanity, but as an unsuspecting carrier of one. With Pandora, Zeus sent a sealed jar, or a box, as some later tales recount, with strict instructions never to open it. It was a tempting, irresistible package delivered to Epimetheus, Prometheus's well-meaning but often foolish brother, who, despite Prometheus's earlier warnings to accept no gifts from Zeus, was instantly captivated by Pandora's charm. As the story unfolds, Pandora, driven by her inherent, divinely implanted curiosity, eventually lifted the lid of the jar. Out poured all the evils of the world: disease, plague, sorrow, toil, despair, famine, and all manner of human suffering swirling forth to afflict mankind. Only hope remained at the bottom, trapped beneath the lid, before it could escape a final ironic cruelty from the king of the gods. Thus humanity, though now possessing fire, found itself burdened by endless woes, a grim consequence of Prometheus's benevolent transgression. But Zeus's primary vengeance was reserved for Prometheus himself. The punishment was to be as unique as the crime, as eternal as the fire he had stolen. Zeus commanded his loyal servants, the personifications of power, Kratos enforced Baia, to seize the defiant Titan. Prometheus, though mighty, did not resist. He understood the cosmic scales, the inevitable consequence of his actions. He stood before Zeus, his gaze unwavering, his spirit unbroken, even in the face of absolute divine fury. Zeus decreed that Prometheus be taken to the desolate, windswept peaks of the Caucasus Mountains, a place of stark primordial grandeur, where the winds howled ceaselessly and the towering peaks scraped the very belly of the heavens. There Kratos and Bia, with immense chains forged by Hephaestus himself, chains imbued with divine power, unbreakable and inescapable, bound Prometheus to a jagged, unforgiving crag. The cold, unyielding stone became his eternal prison, the vast, empty sky his ceaseless tormentor. The cruelty of the punishment was not merely in the binding, but in its relentless, unending nature. Each day a monstrous eagle, a creature born of the Tartarian depths, with talons sharper than any blade, and a beak capable of tearing through mountains, would descend upon Prometheus. This eagle, a direct instrument of Zeus's vengeance, would tear open Prometheus's side and devour his liver. The liver, in ancient belief, was the seat of human emotion, the wellspring of compassion and defiance. It was a symbolic and exquisitely painful choice for the punishment of the Titan who had dared to feel pity for mortals. And then as night descended upon the desolate peaks, a new horror would begin. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Prometheus's divine essence, his immortality, would begin its slow, agonizing work. Throughout the night, his liver, devoured during the day, would regenerate, growing back inch by painful inch, until it was whole again by the first light of dawn. And with the rising sun, the eagle would return, its shadow falling upon the bound Titan, and the horrific cycle would begin anew. Day after day, year after year, eon after eon, Prometheus was condemned to an unending cycle of excruciating pain, a perpetual torture from which there was no escape, no reprieve, no end. The howling winds of the Caucasus carried Prometheus's groans across the desolate landscape, a mournful lament that mingled with the mournful cries of the eagle. Yet even amidst this unfathomable agony, Prometheus did not break. His spirit, though racked with pain, remained defiant. He bore his punishment with a stoic endurance, his eyes fixed on the distant heavens, silently challenging the tyrannical power of Zeus. He knew he had paid a terrible price, but he also knew that humanity, thanks to his sacrifice, now possessed the fire, the essential tool for their survival and their ultimate advancement. His compassion for mortals outweighed his own suffering, his foresight providing a grim comfort in the knowledge that his torment was not in vain. Zeus, meanwhile, observed his captive with a grim satisfaction. The eternal agony of Prometheus served as a stark warning to all gods and mortals alike of the terrible consequences of defying the supreme will. The sight of the bound Titan, his liver perpetually consumed and regenerated, was a constant reminder of Zeus's unchallenged authority, a gruesome monument to his unyielding power. Yet even in his triumph, Zeus carried a gnawing unease. Prometheus, the Titan of foresight, possessed knowledge of a prophecy, a secret that could one day lead to Zeus's own downfall. The prophecy spoke of a son born to Zeus who would eventually overthrow him, just as Zeus had overthrown his own father Cronus. Only Prometheus knew the identity of the mother who would bear this formidable child, and he refused to reveal it even under the most unimaginable torture. This knowledge of final defiant act was a hidden strength for Prometheus and a constant source of torment for the omnipotent king of the gods. Generations passed. Civilizations rose and fell. The flames Prometheus had brought to humanity warmed countless hearths, forged countless tools, and illuminated countless minds. Humans learned, they grew, they built, they innovated. They were no longer the shivering, helpless creatures of the primordial dawn. They harnessed the power of fire to create art, to tell stories, to build cities, to explore the vastness of their world. The spark he had given them ignited the flame of curiosity, of invention, of ambition. They were in essence becoming more like the gods themselves in their capacity for creation and destruction, thanks to the Titan's selfless act. But the price of that gift was eternally paid on the desolate crag, where the defiant Titan endured his ceaseless torment. The haunting image of the eagle's descent, the tearing of flesh, the agonizing regeneration, became a silent legend, a grim secret known only to the winds and the impassive mountains. Prometheus, the chained savior of mankind, remained a symbol of ultimate sacrifice, his suffering a testament to the boundless compassion that could defy even the mightiest of gods. His agony was a silent symphony, a perpetual reminder that even the greatest gifts often come with the heaviest of prices echoing across the ages, a chilling testament to the unbreakable spirit of a titan who chose to suffer eternally for the sake of a fleeting, fragile race. The stage was set for a dramatic intervention, for the eventual arrival of a hero destined to break the chains, but the scars of Prometheus's long agony would forever remain etched upon the very fabric of the cosmos. Ages passed, eons spun their weary threads, and the agonizing lament of Prometheus, chained to the crags of the Caucasus, became a mournful chord woven into the very song of the earth. The monstrous eagle, a daily harbinger of torment, continued its grim ritual, tearing at the Titan's regenerating flesh. Yet Prometheus endured, his spirit unbroken, his gaze still fixed on the distant horizon, where the fires of humankind, his ultimate gift, flickered like tiny beacons of hope. His agony was a silent testament, a hidden sacrifice that fueled the very progress of the mortal world, a constant reminder of the profound cost of defiance against the tyrannical will of the heavens. But the threads of destiny woven by the fates themselves never remain static. Even the mightiest decrees of Zeus eventually yield to the inexorable march of time and prophecy. The prophecy that Prometheus alone held, close the secret of Zeus's eventual downfall, continued to gnaw at the Skyfather, a seed of unease in his otherwise absolute dominion. While Prometheus suffered, humanity thrived, growing beyond the primitive state Zeus had wished for them. They built empires, crafted intricate arts, delved into the mysteries of the stars, and even began to question the very nature of their divine overlords. The fire of Prometheus had truly ignited their spirit, creating a race with burgeoning ambition and a growing sense of self-worth. It was into this evolving world that a new hero emerged, one destined to bridge the gap between gods and mortals, a demigod of unparalleled strength, courage, and a noble heart, Heracles. Son of Zeus himself and a mortal woman, Alcmene, Heracles was a living paradox, a testament to both divine power and human resilience. His legendary labors, decreed by Hera's wrath and Eurystheus's cunning, had led him across the known world, facing beasts and monsters, accomplishing feats that no other mortal could even contemplate. His 11th labor, however, would lead him to the very threshold of Prometheus's suffering, a convergence of destiny and divine will. The task set before Heracles was to retrieve the golden apples of the Hesperides, a mythical fruit guarded by the daughters of evening and a fearsome dragon. As he embarked on this perilous quest, Heracles found himself traversing the desolate regions of the Caucasus, drawn by an unspoken force, an ancient lament carried on the wind. He heard the mournful cries not of human suffering, but of something far older, far more profound. His keen eyes scanned the towering peaks, and there amidst the jagged crags he saw him, the colossal figure of Prometheus, bound by unbreakable chains, his chest perpetually torn open, the monstrous eagle perched upon him. Heracles, a hero driven by an innate sense of justice and compassion, was immediately struck by the horrific spectacle. He had faced many monsters, overcome many trials, but the sight of this eternal torment, inflicted upon a being of such profound benevolence, stirred something deep within his heroic soul. He recognized the Titan, for the legends of Prometheus, though often whispered in fear, were still known among mortals, tales of the one who brought them fire. Without hesitation, Heracles strung his mighty bow, an instrument of war crafted by the gods themselves. He aimed with unerring precision, his arrow slicing through the air with the speed of thought. The eagle, caught unaware in its gruesome feast, shrieked a terrible cry as the arrow found its mark, piercing its black heart. It tumbled from the sky, a dark, lifeless heap, its reign of terror over. Having dispatched the tormentor, Heracles then approached the bound Titan. The chains forged by Hephaestus and imbued with divine power resisted even his legendary strength. They were not merely physical bonds, but magical ensnarements designed to hold a god. But Heracles was a son of Zeus, and his strength, though mortal-born, was truly divine. He strained his muscles, rippling sweat beading on his brow, and with a Herculean effort that shook the very mountain, he began to wrench the chains from the crag. The rocks groaned, the very air trembled as the ancient bonds slowly, agonizingly began to yield. Finally, with a mighty roar, Heracles smashed the chains, freeing Prometheus from his eternal prison. The Titan, though weakened by millennia of torture, rose slowly, his form radiating an ethereal power that had been suppressed for so long. His liver, though still scarred, had ceased its gruesome regeneration. He stood free, his gaze fixed on Heracles, a profound gratitude shining in his ancient eyes. He recounted his tale of the stolen fire of Zeus's wrath and of the hidden prophecy that still threatened the Skyfather's reign. Heracles, true to his noble character, did not immediately demand the prophecy. Instead, he sought to ensure Prometheus's lasting freedom and to assuage the long-held wrath of his father Zeus. It was decided that Prometheus would wear a ring fashioned from a link of the very chain that had bound him, set with a piece of the Caucasus rock. This would serve as a symbolic continuation of his punishment, a token gesture that would allow Zeus to maintain a semblance of his authority while granting Prometheus his freedom. Some say this was the origin of humans wearing rings, a subtle nod to the Titan who suffered for them. Zeus, though initially furious at the slaying of his eagle and the freeing of his captive, found himself in a peculiar position. The riddle of the prophecy still weighed heavily on him, and he knew that only Prometheus held the key. With the token of the ring, a compromise was reached. Prometheus, now freed, revealed the crucial detail of the prophecy. If Zeus were to lie with the sea nymph, Thetis, she would bear a son mightier than his father, a son who would surely overthrow him. Forewarned, Zeus abandoned his pursuit of Thetis, who was later wed to the mortal Peleus, and bore the legendary hero Achilles, a warrior indeed mighty, but forever bound to the mortal realm, thus averting the prophecy of Zeus's downfall. The liberation of Prometheus marked a pivotal moment in the cosmic order. It symbolized not just the breaking of chains, but the tempering of divine wrath, the grudging acknowledgement of humanity's growing significance. Prometheus, the great benefactor, now walked free, though forever marked by his long agony. He returned to his place among the Titans, a venerable figure of wisdom and enduring compassion. The legacy of Prometheus continued to shape the mortal world. The fire he gifted, once a raw force, became the very crucible of human civilization. It allowed for the birth of philosophy, as minds freed from the constant struggle for survival turned to ponder the greater mysteries of existence. It fueled scientific inquiry as humans learned to observe, experiment, and understand the natural world. It inspired art, literature, and music as they sought to express their complex emotions and their newfound understanding of beauty. The Promethean spirit became synonymous with human striving, with the pursuit of knowledge, with the courage to defy the constraints of fate, and even the will of the gods for the sake of progress. Yet a subtle shadow remained, a quiet caution embedded in the very heart of human ingenuity. The tale of Pandora's box served as a grim reminder that even the greatest gifts could come with unforeseen consequences, that knowledge and progress unchecked by wisdom could unleash their own forms of suffering. Humanity, now empowered, was also burdened by the evils that had escaped, forcing them to confront sorrow, pain, and their own mortality with a new, sharper awareness. And so the story of Prometheus endures, a timeless myth woven into the fabric of human experience. It is a tale of divine defiance, of boundless compassion, of unimaginable suffering, and of ultimate liberation. It speaks to the eternal struggle between authority and freedom, between ignorance and enlightenment. Prometheus remains not merely a figure of legend, but an enduring symbol of humanity's relentless quest for knowledge, its unyielding spirit in the face of adversity, and its eternal gratitude for the spark that ignited its very soul. He is the Titan who dared to dream of a better future for a fragile race, and in doing so paid the ultimate price forever, binding his agony to the very fire of mankind, a haunting image of sacrifice and an eternal beacon of hope. The celestial symphony continued, but now a new powerful note resonated within it, the triumphant yet ever-cautious song of humanity, forever touched by the enduring legacy of their chained benefactor.